You're listening to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com, 100% listener-supported radio, and now we return you to your host.
Good morning, everyone. You're listening to Turtle Island News with Tracey Kennedy. Live, Wolf Spirit Radio, turtleislandnews.info, Revolution Radio, Studio A. Good morning, everybody. Where else? Awake Radio Group. Sorry, I'm a little slow today. And, of course, Scottish Sovereigns on the Land. I hope today finds you well. Got a lot of news. And I do want to tell everyone that if you want to listen to the archives of the show, I'm starting to put them all up on Dropbox. So I'll be providing you the link to my Dropbox thing, and help yourself. Two Dog and I did a show yesterday talking about the events in United States. Potential race war. What's led up to it? I want to let you know a few facts that aren't spoken of. Men worldwide, 80% kill other men of the same racial group close to home. 80%. Sometimes the numbers are higher, of course, sometimes a little lower. And even though, surprisingly enough, worldwide crime is dropping, especially in Canada and the United States, violence is done by men against other men who look like them. These are the facts. So when we talk about race, we're talking about a different issue here. Men kill others of a different race, usually because they're paid to. Be it cops or soldiers. They love sending soldiers to another country where people look like them. It's much easier to kill someone who you think is other than yourself. Women, of course, are most likely to be killed by a man they're intimate with. And violence against women, physical, sexual, psychological, is pervasive around this world. A staggering number of women. Even the girls and women affected by violence worldwide. One example, 133 million women and girls alive right now have undergone forced genital mutilation. 133 million. That's almost 4 times the entire population of Canada. Whether at home, on the streets, or during war, violence against women is a global pandemic that takes place in public and private places. Men, when they kill, of course, we are talking about disenfranchised males, for the most part. Why do men kill? Well, part of the reason, and let's be honest about this, I want to have a really open, honest conversation, is men are rewarded for being brutal. You know, it's why we see so many black men being shown as beasts, brutal beasts. Abuse that happens from men in the entertainment business, especially on all of your little blood sports, football, boxing, all of these things. These men who hit each other in the head or in violent games, sometimes since they were 15, 12, 11, 9, are all suffering brain damage, first of all. But when we look at, I don't know, Merriweather, let's look at that. Cable channel heavily promoting that boxing match in Las Vegas between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. Cable network was going all out to raise interest to a fever pitch, of course, for what it was billing as one of the most anticipated fights in boxing history. But there's something missing here. Amid all this hoopla, as corporations and promoters line up for their big payday, pay-per-view payday, there is a resonating sound of silence of Merriweather's documented history of violence, domestic and otherwise. No mention of any accountability, no mention of responsibility, because men, especially poor men, worldwide, are encouraged and favored and rewarded for their violence. That Mayweather is a serial batterer of women can't be disputed. Even according to the sports website Deadspin, Merriweather has at least 7 assaults against 5 different women that resulted in arrest or citations, in addition to other episodes in which the police were called and no charges made. What we know for a fact is that most women do not report violence. So if 7 assaults were made just against women, know that probably 3 times that number happened. We're talking about attacking women in a nightclub, attacking women at home, even pleading guilty to these things. Sometimes paying, $500, up to that. Questioned by a CNN reporter last year about his abusive behavior, Merriweather showed no remorse. He noted, there's no pictures, there's hearsay, there's allegations. Previously said he should not be compared to OJ or Chris Brown because there are no pictures of the women he abused. As if a lack of video photographic evidence is equal to exoneration. In fact, Mayweather spent several months in jail, 2012, after pleading guilty to misdemeanor assault charges. What's astonishing to me here is how easily the public is willing to overlook his misogyny, his violent behavior, outside the ring. Not just the blood sport you pay for, because that's what you're paying for, but the other stuff. Consider how well all the hype over this fight paid off. Gambling was so heavy, with one MGM Resorts official estimating a total wagers at 80 million. In the United States, where most people are poor now, let's say that, most people are poor. People are on record number of social assistance. This is also a worldwide epidemic. Mayweather is the highest paid sportsman in the world, rewarded for violence. Rewarded for being the black beast that you are so afraid of. And his history of abuse can be seen even worse when we remember that he is a professional fighter. He makes millions throwing punches. He earns his living with his fists. The fact that he uses those same fists to beat women doesn't matter. Not to CBS, not to MGM Grand, not to Las Vegas, not to the gaming industry, not to the sponsors associated with the fight that just happened. If any of them made a public statement about his abuse, I have not been able to find it anywhere. But the embrace of Mayweather makes them complicit in this horrific behavior. Instead of being celebrated as boxing's greatest moneymaker, of course, and a celebrity, he's a star. Sure. Some colonists have named Mayweather for his violent rampages, yet these reports do not resonate with the public in a meaningful way. Domestic violence remains epidemic in the United States. According to Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 4.7 million women experience physical violence by an intimate partner every year. 1 in 4 women have been victims of physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. Their fathers, their brothers, their husbands, their relatives. And for some reason, domestic violence is considered to be underreported at its best. Of course, boxing can be thrilling, artistic, mesmerizing, but it betrays an image of men that I would prefer not to see. And men who are given no other opportunities but to use their fists or pick up a gun and kill someone in another country because they are the others. Illuminati, boxing and squaring. Mayweather versus Pacquiao. Ma versus Pa. And to some of us, it's no mystery the occult nature of this really ill-perceived game called life. So we spend much of our time focused on inner self, discovering things yet to occur, shaping, molding, fashioning them, as they are birthed from our perceptions. However, my life, role, character that I choose to act out, from while being a reflection of the infinite, of course, infinite, has tasked itself with a really great riddle. How to not only remain awake, spry, equipped in a density thicker than Jell-O now, but also to dive right into the quicksand and try to extract a few others with me. I don't want to be here alone. So we have arrived on all sides to assist humanity. There's no doubt about that. Many of us. That being said, though, some think this idea of looking at life as a boxing match is probably beneath them. Something unworthy of reflection from their lofty state of high consciousness. But make no mistake, it is the duty of the strong to uphold the sometimes weak. And in that act, we do descend. That is the beginning of the great arcana, cards to build. And that starts from the nether world, the nether world, nature, from the ground up, underneath the ground, and up. An ancient diagram showing physical correspondence to spiritual worlds according to the body always start at your feet, which are supposed to be actually representing the worlds below the worlds. And let us look at that event, highly syndicated event, and see how a little investigation shows what still remains most secret is always present, but it is sheer ignorance that becomes its cloak of invisibility. Again, it remains illusionatory and almost invisible, like the mist in mysticism, for all but those orchestrating. So about blaming the characters, it is about learning how their roles are cast, examining if you are in a role, and lastly, checking your star material. What are you made of? What materials from these stars? So Ma versus Pa, is that not obvious? This entire dimension is mostly made up of zeros and ones. This translates as to good and evil, night and day, woman and man, positive and negative, a host of others. In fact, it would take almost forever to reach the limits of this duality. Pants or dress, paper or plastic, on and on and on. Duality gives us choices. Choices gives us reactions. Reactions gives us energy, which equal motivation, progress, growth, etc. This is a basic formula here. So it is really about amplification. How much of said energy can be generated or orchestrated to shape, form, fashion as we choose. To mold the prima materia, the primary material, is the whole of knowledge on this plane. So let's look at how it's being done by those in the shadows who we shine light on to reveal their deeds. May they face the ultralight purification. May we begin with the ring. The circle, 2D, and the orb, 3D, always remain synonymous for the rough, unshaped, unformed, untamed, and wild womb. It is the embodiment of limitlessness, as you just never know what you may get. This fact also happens to scare the holy hell out of the system of control. For a globulous orb to remain as such for a prolonged stint in the matrix is in itself strange, an anomaly, if you will. And I always find that blockheads make great builders for the New World Order. They prefer squares. Know what I mean? In celestial mechanics, your head is actually the whole globe, while all the entrances in your head lay exposed to the influence of the archons, the celestial guides, that work via light frequencies or known planets. If not constantly guarded and guided by you, the custodian, You remain tossed back and forth on a sea of thought and emotions. To make this clear, man, woman, will follow the lights that have created this world until they come into total realization of their own being. In this state, they will be using senses of perception to determine what is around them as they zigzag from one pole to another. The adept knows when senses collapse, you can see everything, and there is much more to be witnessed in everything than there ever will be in using the primary, the five senses. Looking at pictures of our face, we see planetary correspondence to all the orifices of the face. The first physical image of the microcosm. Each opening is a portal. Thus the term was coined by those who operate the craft, the ship, the earth, and the term is squaring the circle. So let us look at it again. Their overall goal is to bring the orb, O-R-B, which can be perceived as your consciousness, into the ring or the cube matrix for squaring off. The final esoterically connected concoction is the ring. By definition, is actually circular. But this one is also a square. This is the beginning of the ancient Kabbalah or Kaaba. The Ka and the Ba. And the Kabbalah always seeks to tie a cord or cable from the beginning to the perceived end of a person's lifetime, so that you have to follow around this. So definition here. Kabbalah also comes from the English word cable, meaning a cord or a binding agent that attaches from one end to the other, or the beginning to the end. Since Kabbalah is encoded in every modern language, the first letter is meant to connect with the last. Without being winded about the subject, as I have talked about this other times in greater depth, all languages are programs, period. The same way a computer needs a program humans now need a program in order to function on this plane. With no communication, one is left prone to receiving only input, or finds a straight way and injects in to the higher mind, which functions on the language that we call imagination. No talking, only projecting. And the modern Kabbalah is always based on the evocation of variations from a hexagram or a cube. The two triangles interwoven, one pointed up, one pointed down. That's all it is. The Kabbalah, or the program, is one of a square or a cube. And when in use, the patterns and thought forms that guide that shape will be present everywhere. This can be seen as the 64-bit Xbox or GameCube that can play games that look like worlds, but all as old as the 64 hexagram I Ching. To confirm this, you can examine for a moment different modes or modifications and variations of sports games. In MMA, their ring becomes an octagon, or more appropriately, an octagonal prism. In the NFL, the ring is a rectangle, or more correctly, it is phi. Even American football mimics the vesica to make the phi equation complete. The baseball has a diamond, or an octahedron, and so on. So these are dimensions. They're all meant to be a square, shape, form, and fashion, the viewer and the participant alike. The only element necessary to give it all life, like a machine, is energy. You, my brothers and sisters, have been providing that. Why you must choose. And as I've talked about before, duality creates friction by its back and forth oscillation. It is the same friction, better seen as the combustion, that creates energy, so they must cast the characters in the greatest contrast to receive the optimal results. This is done subliminally, as Ma, Mayweather, versus Pa, Pacquiao, symbolically mother versus father, male versus female. A simple answer on who they would be those who have the greatest invested interest in keeping the matrix going. When you barely own your own underwear, or less, it's easy to say, the heck with it all. Let it be engulfed in the inferno of molten comet ash. Well, if you have fabricated documents saying that you own the earth, like what is exhibited in the new movie Jupiter Ascending, which you should check out, but you can see things differently. For example, and these examples alone are yet another form of the almost infinite duality. And duality is the core principle behind all the energetics. God versus the devil. And there's no greater supernatural diametric opposition than God and devil. And notice the Supreme Being is not actually mentioned. God is and always will be by the term, the dramatic Gothic god, Good, G-U-D, who currently resides in Gotham City, New York, and Washington, D.C. I quote, "In God they trust." And the new show Gotham, by the way, you want to see symbolism, you want to think that all the stories I'm telling you are not being played out, watch that. Although, television is definitely a means to an end. But all that old dev and the many divas, what can you say besides Sat, Nam? The name Sat or Namaste is name Sat. All references to some massive entity that seeded variations of itself in the planet long ago and feeds off other seeds, its children, to uproot it, to know edgewise. They are the children of the corn. And you will always see the dramatic God pictured with dogs. Always. Think this isn't playing out? A dog just gave, and I had a laugh reading this, a pneumatic plague tied to an outbreak in Colorado by a dog. Apparently it's only happened once before in history, but to me, I looked at it and just laughed. And while these entities are clearly likened unto the same polarized forces, so in fact they are the same, they are treated as different by the judgmental observer. Floyd was cleverly cast as a money-grabbing devil, Pacquiao as a kind-hearted saint of the people. Both will, however, pummel the living daylights out of each other, Old Testament style, as the combatants most likely ride with Ramses, Mayweather, and those from the ghetto of Goshen route for their underdog, Moses Pacquiao. Yeah, I said it, Ramses Merriweather and Moses Pacquiao. Who did you think would win? The truth is, of course, I didn't care. But if I did, here's how I see it. Currently, they have been at work in re-engineering the idea of all cultures. Their new world, which was always the United States, has been complete, meaning finished. And now they have introduced a new order, meaning a new way of how things will work. However, this is like pulling teeth, since the same ethics that were introduced to make the new world appealing from aloft, I guess, by our desolated old world, fallout refugee kin, must be abolished, including all sense of freedom. Countries around the world right now are revoking freedom of assembly. On March 26th, without any fanfare or attention from any media source that I could see, the Spanish government ended freedom of assembly completely, in the face of popular opposition. 80% of the Spaniards opposed it. The upper house passed the Citizens Security Law. Under the provision, which goes into effect July 1st, police will have the discretionary ability to hand out fines up to $650,000 to unauthorized demonstrators who protest near a transport hub or a nuclear power plant. They will be allowed to issue fines up to $30,000 for taking pictures of police during a protest, failing to show police ID, or just gathering in an unauthorized way near a government building. Now, you would say the law doesn't technically outlaw protest, Tracey, but it's really hard for me to see the difference that makes it in practice. Imagine New York City PD without any judicial oversight that could give $650,000 fines to every Black Lives Matter protester participating in a die-in at Grand Central. Never mind that they would never pay. Would anyone come back day after day, racking up millions of dollars in fines? Spain is only the latest democracy, so demons, to sign freedom of assembly to the dustbin, while earlier eras of protest and riot, sometimes taken by concession from the state, today's government's default response is to implement increasingly draconian laws against public exercise of anything even close to democracy. And it raises the questions how many rights must be abrogated before a liberal democracy becomes a police state. And liberal democracies today are thinly veiled oligarchies with heavy control of the media and ample willingness to put down protesters with violence, even when the protesters are peaceful. In Quebec, Canada, where students strike right now against austerity, once again, disrupting civil society, of course, and the marches are being declared illegal. They were declared before they had even begun. And at the height of the last wave of student strikes, back in 2012, Quebec legislature passed the bill that we had talked about, Bill 78, which made pickets, an unauthorized gathering of over 50 people, illegal. Punished violators with fines up to $5,000 for individuals and $125,000 for organization. And similar fines are happening now on the protesters. Last October, a new law was passed in Turkey allowing police to search demonstrators and their homes without warrants or even grounds for suspicion. A much looser definition, harsher punishment for resisting arrest, of course, and covering your face at a protest or shouting particular slogans, crimes punishable by years of jail time. This February in London, police forced climate protest organizers to hire private security for marshalling a rally, making protesting not a free public right, but an expensive private service. The list goes on. Of course, France banned Palestine solidarity demonstrations. Police in Australia gained the power to ban protesters from appealing the public spaces for a year, even if they work or live there. In Egypt, Ukraine, and Russia's governments have outlawed protest entirely. Mexico's Congress approved La Ley Anti-Marchas, which, if ratified by the state-level governments, will modify the Constitution so that any unauthorized gathering is essentially illegal. The constitutional end to freedom of assembly. Most of this happened in 2014. United States, the same. Baltimore. Many of those who protested Freddie Gray's murder were held without charges for over 48 hours. Cells designated for 1 or 2 people were crammed with dozens, and prisoners weren't allowed phone calls or blankets or pillows or any contact with a lawyer or anyone from the outside world. In 2012, H.R. 347 made protesting near government buildings, political conventions, or global summits, except in heavily policed and encaged free speech zones, a federal crime. After the Black Lives Matter movement, of course, Black Lives Matter unless you're female, which is why so many women can go disappearing in Canada. But after they had subsided in New York City, the police commissioner, William Bratton, demanded a new force of 1,000 police armed with machine guns, specifically to monitor protests, and sought to turn resisting arrest actually into a felony charge. The right to freedom of assembly is guaranteed in the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights and appears in almost all democratic constitutions, including the First Amendment of the U.S. Constitution. The freedom to speak out and protest were often at the heart of Cold War claims that the free world was superior to the evil empire. Of course, even in democratic countries, the police and the courts have a long history of shutting down genuine, threatening gatherings or political meetings or anything they think is fishy. The First Amendment didn't stop the state from imprisoning Eugene Debs for an anti-war speech, or shooting black student protesters at Orangeburg and Jackson State during the Black Power era. But the promise of free assembly is often and easily broken. Why would a democratic state go as far as to officially revoke it? Why in 2014 did we begin to see the de facto power of the state, repression, made de jour? In Spain, the answer is clear. 7 years after the financial crisis and collapse of the housing market, unemployed remains near 25%, more like 50% for youth. Spanish state has proven unwilling, unable to address the massive structural problems, and the European Union continues to impose austerity after austerity on the fourth largest member economy. As a result, the Spanish people have grown almost completely disillusioned with the possibility of any kind of change coming. They are increasingly turning to mutual aid, social movements, and direct action to get things done. And it might be argued that Spain's repressive gag law reflects the country and the country's relatively recent transition from dictatorship to democracy, which began only in 1975. There is no Generalissimo Francisco Franco in Quebec or Australia, and New York City has technically been a democracy for 100 years. Or hundreds, depending on who you want to listen to. But no matter how closely it has come to resemble heavily policed city-states such as Singapore or Hong Kong, it's already happened. I can't be the only one seeing this. And the appearance of anti-protest laws in so many countries just reveals a general trend in the way the governments envision our future. The state's utter failure to assist those most hurt by the ongoing economic crisis becomes impossible to ignore, even as they scream recovery from crisis. Proves to be hollow for most people. Protests and riots are spreading worldwide, no sign of slowing down. These politicians and the governments have made their choice. Stability, continuity, by any means possible. These new laws suggest that the ruling elites are preparing themselves for a protracted conflict, rather than genuflect before the idols of the demons or the democratic freedoms, or, God forbid, actually attempt to alleviate such widespread social problems as inequality, racist violence, ecological collapse. Governments are giving themselves new weapons to crush those who demand change. But once nonviolent marches are punished as harshly as rioting, will protesters stick to passive demonstration, or they take to the streets with more radical ideas? But what's required to win justice? And no, riots are nothing new. Here is a fact. Prior to the 60s, rioting in the United States consisted of whites burning down and destroying black communities simply because they didn't want them there. Mostly in major northern, western, Midwest cities where the population of black citizens grew tremendously due to great migration, blacks fled from Jim Crow South to seek refuge, find jobs and homes, and had to work really cheap. So the competition was fierce. Thousands and thousands of blacks flooded cities, resulting in white flight. That's what it was called. White people were angry that blacks were taking jobs that they wanted to be paid for and building their own communities as well. Even white soldiers that had been stationed away from home were furious when they came back to this change. This is how race riots began. Happens the same way all over the world. Desegregation in cities, subliminal attempts to keep their cities segregated. Blacks are not allowed in the white part of town. Black homes and communities destroyed, burnt down by angry white mobs. Countless deaths occurred from 1921 on. Whole communities burnt to the ground. Not just in the States, but all over. Why? Because people are made to be afraid of each other. They are. They're made to be terrified. And of course, the brute caricature that portrays one group as innately savage, animalistic, destructive, criminal, deserving punishment, even death, that a brute is a fiend. He is a sociopath. He is an antisocial menace. Black brutes depicted hideous, terrifying predators who target helpless victims, especially white victims. During slavery, the dominant characters of Black was Mammy, Coon, Tom, Pickaninny, portrayed as childlike, ignorant, docile, groveling, generally harmless. These portrayals were pragmatic, instrumental. Proponents of slavery created and promoted images of blacks that justified slavery and soothed any white consciousness or conscious or how you felt. If slaves were childlike, for example, then you could feel something paternal for them, where masters became pseudo-parents for the slaves, and that was humane, even morally light. More importantly, slaves were rarely depicted as brutes back then, because that portrayal might have become a self-fulfilling prophecy. That changed, however, as it always does. We are seeing the same things portrayed in the same way, that people without jobs and no hope become desperate. Even the myth that whites have control or power over where they live, even that they are a majority in a place that is surrounded. Look at this planet. Most people are brown-skinned and brown-haired to varying degrees. But it doesn't matter. It's just about making you afraid. Good guy, bad guy, white, black. It's all about the same thing. So it's very simple then. Those who conform get to hang out and play lapdog a bit longer until they are made to merge fully with what? Maybe the intelligent computers. And it will be easy for them, since they are totally reactionary, non-creative, and constantly take orders. If you're willing to sell out, whatever your color, brothers and sisters, they got a job for you. Could be smashing heads. Could be on your knees. But you will not be alone. Looks like it's break time. That was a fast hour. Hey guys? Okay, I'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. Sorry for the moment of silence there. Oh, we're disconnected. I will try and reconnect. Not sure what happened. Okay, we're back. Sorry about the other stations, guys. I suddenly had a moment of silence. I guess I said something. So you want to know your rights? You have the right to remain as stupid as you want to be. And everything you do not know can and will be used against you. Most likely for somebody's profit. And it will be easy for them, since they are totally reactionary, non-creative, and constantly emulate, take orders, and then take income, not outcome. Think of those in modern musical industry to glean a perfect example of this. So the re-engineering is as such and already in play. Ancient Eastern tradition was first up to bat this round, although just about everything that was learned in the real secret societies, that is, the Ordinati, the Diabli, the Intrepidi, came from the East. The flaming pentagram of the Moors, the Moroccan flag, the Abrahamic control system, the power over the Genesis, or the genies, or the jinn, and the Solomonic rites at Memphis, the Ajab, Arabic Kabbalah, numeric system of calculations to gauge the parallax of stars for projection, modern mathematics, and the list keeps going. The lesson here is simple. Lie with god dogs and wake up with fleece. This is the Saturn cube matrix. In short, those from the East could not be assimilated, for the next overhaul in their culture is deeply rooted in their genes. Now the entire world is upside down, and our ideas are the adventures of the 1001 Arabian Nights, and the beautiful chaste virgins that look like Princess Jasmine have replaced the unshaven beheading extremist that obey nothing in the Koran, yet claim to be the fruit. Whatever wasn't gleaned from the Orient was already pillaged from ancient Kemet. One down, several more to go. And for those who are looking to cheer for their home team or race, they are faceless traitors of the hue, so they have no respect for color. Those hillbillies in the Midwest and the places like West Virginia who are inbred to believe they are free and thus can't be persuaded edgewise were up almost simultaneously as secular supremists, like Timothy McVeigh, paved the way for the OKC for an onslaught of disarming gun laws that left the sons of the hunters hailing from Orion with no weapons. Now many of them are now just as vulnerable as those animals they have hanging on their walls. And I quote McVeigh, "Become intensely interested in gun rights." Wikipedia. I won't waste time on North Korea right now. They could be the nicest people. We simply would not know anyway, as the rest of the world has been barred from visiting the Hermetic Kingdom. And if you did, you can expect for your name to pop up in the next Edward Snowden download. Now it's those of color, as they say. Mainly the nonconformists that don't fit in the image of any characters being projected on this year's hit TV series Empire. Dubbed coonery, a new term you need not be familiar with, if you wish to shorten your vocabulary on racial stereotypes that pertain to those who are melanin dominant. Ferguson, New York, Baltimore are only the beginning of the media blitz, most perpetuated by CNN or the Kabbalistic Canaan. That's what it means, just throw in a few more A's. As the most televised turnouts of the media fabricated instability netted less people and destructive toll than when Boston pasted over the Vancouver Canucks. All the while, it makes nice smoke screen for the onslaught to continue against ISIS, a grammatic pictorial that actually signifies the dollar sign or currency. It's all about the energy. And that hit TV series Empire overwhelms the predominantly Black American viewers with unceasingly themes of male homosexuality. To what end? If Floyd had lost, they'd make the highest stakes ever on the rematch. Floyd wins, well, Floyd always wins. And that also means melanin dominance remains intact in the arena of the world champion. She says to herself questioningly. That may not be in the cards, you would think right now, considering the agenda. Pacquiao wins. Long shot bets pay off, but the house wins big. And the OJ song, For the Love of Money, plays on repeat all night long. Either way, the masses got nothing but a bill. To me, posts like, well, what I'm saying now can change that, right? They are bridges into the people's lives that are surrounded by projections from Saturn's cube, so Hellraiser, and cannot see out. We can break that cube, extract them. They can think again from the outside of the box. All this will come up for many when analyzing boxing, which can be also called squaring, as in let's square off. Just a reminder though, the poison also contains the cure. It's all about how you use it. You know, the Supreme Being is also a riddle that can be solved. Symbolically, the Supreme is in the middle, wavering, neither right nor left. This can be seen as 12 o'clock, again, straight up the middle. So when you ask this matrix, how many Supreme Beings are there, it will respond noon or none. This means that few can be non-biased, balanced, non-judgmental on the physical plane. But it also leaves a clue that if somehow you can achieve it, you become perpetual, basking in infinite newness. This is conscious immortality, not looking for an end because you wish to start over due to the outcome of too many ill-made choices, a beacon to reach. But one that is not far, look within, center yourself, and stay focused. I have been really openly critical of Bill Cosby as a very dangerous, soulless creature of CIA, MKUltra monarch for some time. He has been a CIA tool. Do you remember I Spy? Bill Cosby, spy. And a mind control facilitator, handler, programmer for decades. However, it's never been my intention to try to single him out from the evil institutions and the big picture that he plays a very small but significant supporting role and part amongst the CIA military industrial complex's long list of a cast of characters. Corporate media's evil agenda through a smoke mirror is once again to demonize a black face, Bill Cosby, yet veil the role of the CIA and Hugh Hefner in the monarch sex kitten programming. They crucify black and powerless Cosby within the elite global satanic cabal, while at the same time continue to celebrate his Confederate Hefner commercialized mass media industry of normalizing trauma-based ritual sexual abuse and the mind control of women. It's another example of mass population psychological warfare and the double blind, the insanity without disease. New Jersey State Governor and likely 2016 U.S. Republican presidential candidate Chris Christie celebrate NFL Dallas Cowboys 2014 playoff or rip-off victory with the owner Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones likes his girls, apparently. as easy as his defense. It amounts to insanity to demonize Ray Rice, Adrian Patterson, and other high-profile black athletes for domestic violence, I guess, then celebrate white privilege and wealth and power like soulless Jerry Jones of the Dallas Cowboys that exploit, brutalize, sexually abuse, and rape poor, powerless, marginalized women with utter impunity. They demonize Cosby, yet remain silent to the evil, demonic institutions that as a black man, he can only play by virtue of his race, a marginal supporting role in the big picture. But don't get it twisted, Cosby is a problem and a menace to society, but he's only the tip of an iceberg that seeks to drown all of us when it surfaces. During the 60s, dealing with all the black collaborators of the evil empire that sought only to kill us has always been problematic. I still maintain that unless it is a state of war and we have express permission of our elders, they should not be harmed. However, Cosby and the black satanic cabal is still very much alive, well, growing, and very dangerous, and it is our duty to continue to expose them as treacherous, cold-blooded creatures of the shadow government and the soulless pawns of the New World Order, and warn the masses to be ever vigilant, no matter how tasty the pudding. William Henry Cosby Jr. is such a black collaborator to warn the masses to watch and stay away from. He is a clandestine, covert, blood oath secret, high-level master mason, blood oath secret, member of the Negro section of the ancient Boule that serves the underground Third Reich, the Reichsfuhrer, Heinrich Himmler's SS, the cult of the Dark Messiah, the shadow power behind the throne. Cosby, master of deception, illusions, and duality. Illuminati, their whole insane doctrine is based on the supposition that black is white and that good is evil and that 2 + 2 = 5. Phi. They are men of insane minds, and they have developed an equally insane scientific system designed to reprogram and recreate social material and spiritual reality to fit their perverted upside-down theology. Their scientific system, actually a form of witchcraft, is based on alchemy and magic. Its process is one of the universal motion, designed to purposely form diabolical chaos, so that order may be made out of two dynamic competing forces, ordo ab chao. Their objective is the great work, the changing of man, created in God's image, into the image of a serpent being, void of morality, void of righteousness, anything like just values. In other words, the great work is designed to create and produce a race of soulless, satanic creatures. Only one side, of course. One side always has to win. The effect of their great work to transform, to transmute the world and humanity into the new soulless creature. Heaven and earth must be destroyed and crushed and thoroughly converted into this new paradigm. In essence, heaven and earth are to become hell. The will of Satan shall be done on earth as it is in hell. This is the exalted royal secret. Luciferian, by his own admission, Albert Pike, of the Knights of the Golden Circle, the former sovereign Grand Commander of the Scottish Rite, taught that out of ongoing universal motion, of the conflict of opposites, a potent and magical force must be created or energized, so powerful that, his words, a single man who could possess it himself and should know how to direct it and could revolutionize and change the world. This is the knowledge that John Dee brought back to the Queen, and later was instrumental in writing the King James Bible with. Cosby has the image of America's ideal Heavenly Father. He is Satan, devil. Even played Mr. Devlin. Cosby has an image, innocent fun and goodness. He is diabolical evil. Cosby has an image of a mortal. He is undead. Cosby's 1990 Universal film, Ghost Dad, directed by Sidney Poitier, plot centers on Satan, Lucifer, has been the cause of his mortal death. He returned from the dead as a ghost. In the movie, Cosby declared, "I am Satan." Cosby's true motives are hidden behind his symbols. The Fraternal Order of the Sons and Daughters of Shaka, from the 1975 Warner Brothers film, Let's Do It Again, is indeed fictional, but the satanic theme of the film is the same, and the numbers and the symbols right below Cosby's pineal gland, the third eye, are very much real. The occult power and the mystical virtue of the number 11. The number 11, at the pyramid apex of Cosby's fez, is the number most important to the great beast, 666, Aleister Crowley. Crowley was a member of the satanic occult group in England, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. Now, according to its teachings, the number 11 has occult powers and mystic virtue. Upon the number of 11, this seems to have been the type of number with evil reputation amongst the people. 11 is the essential of all that is sinful, harmful, and imperfect. With the 10, Sephiroth, they contrasted the 11 averse Sephiroth, symbols of destruction and violence and defeat and death. The great beast wrote about the number 11 frequently and emphasized its significance. Firstly, 11 is the number of magic in itself. 2 towers. It is therefore suitable to all types of operations, so workings. Secondly, he says, it is the sacred number par excellence of the new aeon. As it is written in the Book of Law, 11, as all the numbers who are of us, Crowley's infamous, do what thou wilt, be the whole of the law, which he considered the epoch of the New Age, has 11 words and 11 symbols. The occult power and the mystic virtue of the new Masonic pyramid. The pyramid and the Eye of Horus on the middle of the dollar bill are Illuminati symbolism. No doubt about it. And the pyramid is an ancient form based on holiness of the number 3. 2 ancient mystery religions. It, not 6, is considered the most spiritual number, 3. And the Freemasons have perverted the pyramid to represent a structure used specifically to call up the demonic, call up the occult. The point of psychic ability, it is why Dee suddenly could communicate with the angels. It's because when he came back from Ethiopia, he came with the lost book of knowledge and the keys of Solomon that said the magic words. The keys of Solomon and the book of Enoch. One called up demons, as, that even made it into the Bible. The other one calls up angels. But these are split beings. They are one and the same. Still with me? Okay. So Cosby is usually extremely careful and coy about playing the Illuminati all-seeing eye symbolism publicly. But Cosby, earlier in his career, Let's Do It Again, central theme, involves the clandestine use of hypnotism. In the film, Lodge brother Sidney Poitier is a Masonic master hypnotist and creates a Manchurian candidate boxer, interestingly enough, to rig a boxing match to win a substantial amount of prize money to save their lodge from foreclosure. All-seeing eye on Poitier and Cosby's Masonic fez is used to represent the planet Sirius. Sirius is important to Hermetic magicians, and some mind control programmers are deeply into this ancient magic. Satan is said to come from Draco, or Sirius, especially the dog star Canis Major. Masonic programming may well have the blazing star portrayed in the programming as a pentagram with the name Sirius on it. Sirius may represent the master, the creator of the system, in some systems, of course, where the programmer is steeped in Masonic philosophy. Cosby's Let's Do It Again also shows, without a shadow of a doubt, that he was aware of these things before 1975, of the use of hypnotism to destroy an individual's free will within the framework of this mysticism. It would be interesting to know who the hypnotist or the hypnotism film set technical advisor had been. William Joseph Bryan, also Manchurian candidate, or was it William Henry Cosby Jr. Bryan? I don't know. Who wasn't suicided until 1977. 2 years later, Let's Do It Again had been released. Was this the same man? Who was it? I don't know. Of all of the people of Hollywood, Bill Cosby's young television film career, he became an unholy bond and decided to swing with notorious Satanist Sammy Davis Jr., who now comes out and says, we were just doing it for the sex. Were you? 1954, Sammy Davis Jr., Marilyn Monroe, How to Marry a Millionaire. Interesting who they hang out with, right? Public Eyes. Davis, too, was maybe a little less, harmless perhaps, carefree, driving force of individual artistic freedom. While on the hidden side, high-level Illuminati Negro. Whore. Also connected hand in hand with the Black Hand, the Mafia. Davis was also a covert master of deceptions, duality, and illusions. It remains forbidden knowledge which Masonic lodge Davis or Cosby belonged to, or when they were first initiated. However, I am certain beyond a shadow of a doubt that Davis was a Freemason. He was ultra secret and well established Luciferian, 33-degree York Rite Master Mason. At some time, for extraordinary services to the craft, he was promoted to the highest degree of the clandestine York Rite Freemasonry, the Knights of Malta. As a crusading European knight, he moved amongst the ultra-secret elite global cabal of Olympians, Nazis, Imperium, founding fathers, the architects of Project Paperclip, and the CIA, William Wild Bill Donovan, Alan Dulles, Himmler's SS puppet, General Reinhard Galen, were amongst Davis's covert order, the Sovereign Military Order of Malta. Those Negroes, I'm using the word, I'm not going to say it. Okay, moving on. Are not two fun-filled, loving buffoons. The picture we get represents an ancient initiation rite of them together. Cosby, with right foot slightly forward, presenting Davis for entry into another realm of a blood oath, fraternal order, or cult of ultra-secrecy. These are shown many times. When we see this image that I put up before, but I'll put up again, the daughter of God, the priestess of Thoth, one who sits with Horus. Her right foot is slightly forward, and she initiates her husband, the Pharaoh Men-Ku-Re, or Ra, the Eternal, is the spirit of Ka, of Ra, fifth king of the fourth dynasty of Kemet, to the next level to delve into the realms of the god. With the Illuminati Lodge, the sect or cell Cosby initiated Davis into remains a secret. I can't find it. Forbidden knowledge, perhaps. Das ist verboten. Unfortunately, they were two of Hollywood's most powerful and diabolical evil figures that led the Black Satanic Cabal. This cabal turns out to be much older, much more established than you might suspect. It's more likely than not that both Cosby and Davis, Sammy Davis Jr., initiated the young Michael Jackson into the occult and the Black Cabal. But in Hollywood, anywhere there are hot blondes, like actresses, Marilyn Monroe, Jane Mansfield, Sharon Tate, naked white women, and booze, and drugs, and orgies, and mind control, and Satan, you can be assured that Cosby and his ultra-covert little demonic weasel sidekick, Sammy Davis Jr., were in, on, or around the action. And the body count begins to stack up. Marilyn Monroe, linked to LaVey. His initial sex kitten programming during the 50s was among the first celebrities generally believed to have been subjugated to the CIA monarch MKUltra mind control experiments. Through trauma and psychological triggering and programming, Monroe had become a high-level puppet of the shadow elite, even became JFK's presidential model. When Monroe's programming lost its effect and she started to break down, some argue that she was thrown off the Freedom Train. August 5th, 1962, an MKUltra team for designating slaves that were killed when they were not useful and potentially dangerous to their handlers. Also, during the same 50s, Sammy Davis Jr., Freemason, and Frank Sinatra, Mafia, had been in some of the same secret handlers, entrusted with the codes and the keys and the triggers to sex slave Marilyn Monroe. In many instances, she had been in the company with Davis or Sinatra when she had been used and abused in numerous high-level CIA, presidential, diplomatic, mob, sex parties, and orgies. Satanist Jane Mansfield, also associated with Sammy Davis Jr., through underground circles, of course, in the Church of Satan. June 29, 1967, her fate was grisly sealed on the dark, narrow stretch of a road near New Orleans. Incredibly powerful place. Her head was fatally severed in a head-on collision that the Church of Satan believes was the result of one of LaVey's curses. That's what they say they did. August 8, 1969, Hollywood's infamous hairstylist of the stars, Jay Seabrick, and Sharon Tate's fate were sealed. Amongst the 5 victims of the infamous grisly torture slaughter at Satanic. This is Rosemary's Baby film director Roman Polanski's estate. Where? Laurel Canyon. Sharon Tate, 8 months pregnant when she was slaughtered. Some reports say that she had been hung from the rafters in the living room. She had a noose around her neck, attached to her friend, Jay Seabrick. There were 4 deep slash wounds on her chest, and a deep knife wound in her belly, killing her unborn. The blood slaughter, just a couple miles west of Laurel Canyon, was something like the 19th century horrors of Jack the Ripper. I noticed that. Hadn't said it before, but noticed that. But nestled in the overlooking Hollywood, the Lookout Mountain Laboratory was originally envisioned as a U.S. Air Defense Department center. Built in 41, nestled in 2.5 secluded acres of what is now Wonderland Park Avenue. The institution was hidden from view, surrounded by an electric fence. By 1947, on the eve of Operation Paperclip, the formation of the CIA, the facility became a top-secret and clandestine military intelligence, fully operational movie studio. Hollywood's leading technicians and directors and producers and actors and actresses, such as John Ford and Jimmy Stewart and Howard Hanks and Ronald Reagan and Bing Crosby, Walt Disney and Marilyn Monroe, had special U.S. Defense Department secret clearances. They did. To work at the facility on undisclosed, highly classified projects. Something out of the pages of the Reich Minister Joseph Goebbels' Department of Public Enlightenment and Propaganda. With 100,000 square feet of floor space, the covert studio included sound stages, screening rooms, film processing labs, editing facilities, an animation department, and 17 climate-controlled film vaults. It also had underground parking, a helicopter pad, a bomb shelter. The existence of the facility remained unknown to the general public until the 90s, when Sfali, an Illuminati director, stated that the Hollywood cult had located in California, which made all the training films for the Trauma Day spine control. No other place has been identified beside that one, Lookout Mountain Laboratory. These training films were undoubtedly also part of the CIA MKUltra program. During the 60s, international snuff film and pedophile ring fugitive Polanski had been the leading figure in an extremely dangerous and chilling Hollywood star-studded satanic coven in Laurel Canyon, below and linked to Lookout Mountain Lab. Lookout Mountain's clandestine satanic, dark messiah, Hollywood cult was directly involved with the 1968 CIA assassination of U.S. Senator and presidential hopeful Robert F. Kennedy, and the Manchurian candidate MKUltra murderer Nazi Patsy Charles Mason. Allegedly, on the night before Senator Roberts' assassination, June 5, 1968, RFK had dinner with the director, John Frankenheimer, and Roman Polanski and his wife, Sharon Tate. Frankenheimer was, of course, the director of the original Manchurian Candidate and 7 Days in May. JFK apparently spoke with Frankenheimer about both of these projects. Technical advisor on the Manchurian Candidate was MKUltra programmer William Jennings Bryan, who has links to Candy Jones and Sirhan Sirhan, amongst many of the notables that I've introduced to you before. Polanski and Tate's Laurel Canyon Coven of Lookout Mountain also had links to drug trafficking, mind control, child sex slaves, pornography, snuff films, murder, the occult, sex magic of the beast, 666, Aleister Crowley. At the beginning, the grisly, senseless, horrific massacre of human beings in Laurel Canyon was laid by law enforcement agencies at the feet of the Black nationalists and the Black Panther Party for self-defense. It was later they took down Lookout Mountain, Nazified, mind-controlled Mason family for the gruesome crimes. The absolute horrendous murder scene, Sammy Davis Jr.'s, and perhaps his coven leader, Sebrig, had been savagely beaten about the face, the left eye and nose repeatedly stabbed in the chest and the back. Then he was shot in the left lung. A little bit overkilly. However, the fatal stab wound was in the chest and severed the arterial, the main artery in the human body. Sebrig's assassins were no crazed, strung-out drug addicts, not to be this precise. They were professional killers that created a murder scene to appear as if the crimes were committed by dope fiends. Sammy Davis Jr. was directly part of the ultra-secret Lookout Mountains murder cult. Roman Polanski, Sharon Tate, J. Sebring. He was definitely linked to Marilyn Monroe and the U.S. Department of Defense Pentagon as a handler when she was MK Sex Kitten programmed. Again, Lookout Mountain. The little weasel, Sammy Davis Jr., didn't abandon his satanic coven because of the thrill and the fun with Dick and Jane were gone. He left the cousin because the leader, Jay Sebring, and some of the key Grove, like Sharon Tate and Abigail Folger, had been viciously slaughtered below Lookout Mountain. Whatever his mission had been with the coven, it was done, suddenly, over. And for Sammy Davis Jr. and the Church of Satan was far from being groovy. The 60s, 70s thrill ride, or tiptoe through the tulips, as one would lead you to believe. Etan LaVey could arguably have been part of this three-ring circus of the church, but U.S. Army Lieutenant Anthony Aquino, who I have a picture of with those two other guys, was no sideshow. Lieutenant Colonel Aquino, U.S. Army and Joint Chiefs of Staff of the Pentagon, authored a significant portion of LaVey's Satanic Bible. Lieutenant Colonel Aquino is MK Ultra, CIA, trauma-based, multiple personality disorder programmer, dark disciple, Heinrich Himmler, directly connected to the infamous Franklin scandal too, which we have discussed. There seems no evidence that Bill Cosby was a member of that church. However, strange note, Audrey Quimby, author of the book Sodom, Satan, and Sinatra, identified Bill Cosby as a leading member of the Church of Satan during the 60s. In regards to Sammy Davis Jr., he said Davis had been instructed to Satanism and the occult by Rex Ingram, 1956-ish. There had been some grains of truth in Quimby's story to be fleshed out, I guess. However, to begin with, there are two Hollywood Rex Ingrams. So, Rex Ingram, one born January 1892, died in the 50s. Irish film director, producer, writer, actor, connected with Hollywood's silent film industries, connected to the great beast Crowley too. In 56, he had been dead for 6 years. Anyway, the extraordinary black actor, Rex Ingram, was directly professionally linked to Sammy Davis Jr. 1959, Ingram and Davis starred in the United Artists film Anna Lucasta. Ingram, born near Cairo, Illinois, on the Mississippi, his father steamer, fireman, riverboat, I don't know. But Rex Ingram starred in all the black cast films, Comet in the Sky, several of them that came out. In Segregated Heaven and Hell, he presided over the colored hell as Lucifer Jr. Probably just a coincidence. But also starred as a stereotypical Delad himself in 1936 Green Pastures. Thus perhaps the only actor besides George Burns to play both God and Satan in Hollywood film and television. Themselves, beings, are amongst the divine and the fallen ones that perhaps transcend the good and the evil. Ingram was the first African American to be brought into the sphere of influence of a fraternity of scholars, Phi Beta Kappa Chi. In that, Phi Beta Kappa founded the ancient William and Mary College in Williamsburg, Virginia. Hellenistic is historically spread through ancient Greek culture. Again, language, foreign peoples, conquered by Greece, brought into the sphere of influence the Alexander the Great of Macedonia. Again, it's the Apollyon. It's the beast in the book of Revelations. Apollyon, also known as Alexander the Great. Historical records show Alexander the Great has two different colored eyes, one dark as night, the other blue as the sky. Harsh voice, and that he was supposed to be deformed. So he was Janus, and that he actually had two horns on his head. Revelation says Alexander the Great is therefore the same person as Apollyon, Helios, the beast. Just an interesting side note. Now, 1831, a member of the fraternity published a volume called The Ritual of Freemasonry, to which is added a key to Phi Beta Kappa, the Orange, and the Odd Fellows. This is Boulay, kids. This is the guy. So he has direct links to this. Ingram was by all accounts a great and respected Hollywood actor. But behind the veil, once again, Doctor was a strange man. with rather strange passions. He had been arrested several times in Harlem on assault charges, once again, served brief jail sentence in New Jersey for multiple driving violations. At 53, he pleaded guilty to charges under the Manna Act, where he transported a 50-year-old girl that he had abducted from Kansas to New York for allegedly immoral purposes. He did a little jail time for it. The girl later was killed. She died of a suicide. In Ebony Essay, Ingram set out his side story, that his terrible and his trouble with the law was casual, warm friendship with this 15-year-old girl, that he was a true lover of children. I think he was a true soulless, satanic Illuminati pedophile, but that's just me. Ingrid also shared quiet but unholy bond with Bill Cosby again. Ingram played a prominent role. Oh, okay, I have to leave you there. Thank you everyone for tuning in. I'll go into this some more if you guys want to hear it. But let me tell you, all of these guys are related. It's always the same story. And if you sell out, you suck. I don't care what shade your skin is. Okay, love you guys. Talk to you soon. Bye for now.